Hey there, Rick Sage, recording at the Rimrock Studios in Bishop, California. Welcome to Season 2 of the Outdoor Biz Podcast, where I speak with retailers, brand managers, athletes, executives, and others in the outdoor biz and share their stories, tips, advice, productivity tricks, and ideas you can use to take your career or business to the next level. Today's episode is brought to you in part by the Something About Nothing podcast. Think the Seinfeld show meets your favorite morning show. It's a few regular folks from outside Seattle, Washington, talking around the table about sports, the news of the day, and the absurdity of life. Something About Nothing is an entertaining variety show that covers all the stuff you want to talk about but aren't supposed to. Available wherever you listen to podcasts, including Spotify. Check it out today. Just search SOMETHIN about NOTHIN. You won't believe how fun listening to a show about nothing can be. Today I'm speaking with Marc Sherman from Outdoor Gear Exchange in Burlington, Vermont. Marc has had one job in the outdoor biz with Outdoor Gear Exchange and tells us how he got started, the unique evolution of the shop, and some of the great features and services they offer. Hey Marc, welcome to the Outdoor Biz Podcast. How's it going?
Things are going well, Rick. It's busy here with this shop right now. We're doing some expansion, and it's a lot of work on top of the regular job. So It's been interesting.
Right. A bit rewarding, I'll bet, but challenging at the same.
Yeah, you know, I can sleep when I'm dead.
That's right. So how'd you get into the outdoors?
I've been enjoying the outdoors since I was a kid.
Cool.
We used to go do a lot of camping with my parents and skiing. I was actually coming up to Stowe to ski regularly from my home state of New Jersey as a kid. I remember the drives very distinctly and all the things that you do with kids to keep them busy on a 6-hour drive. And also remember being dragged out for the first chair every day by my dad, who was indefatigable in terms of the need to ski regardless of what the weather was like. And
right
I've married someone who's just like that, and I tend to be more of a fair weather skier at this point in my life.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I've got the skills.
There you go.
And I used to do a annual camping trip with my father. We'd do a canoe camping trip every summer for a week, and it was just sort of it was all part of my tradition.
Yeah, cool. Very fun. And what was your first outdoor job?
My first outdoor job was when I opened the Outdoor Gear Exchange in 1995.
Wow.
Yep.
What did you do for that?
I worked for Vermont Teddy Bear for 3 years when I moved to Vermont, and before that I was marketing for a manufacturing company in New York.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So you just jumped right in whole hog.
Yeah, I was out camping with some buddies in the Adirondacks, and a friend of mine had just moved up to town, and he didn't have any gear, and I had already started to accumulate excess gear, as we all do.
Yeah.
And we got to talking, and the conversation turned to a store that I think used to be open in Berkeley, California at the time, called the Wilderness Exchange.
Yeah, remember them
and,
well.
And Jerry Jordan and I talked on the phone. We sort of hatched this plan in the Lake Colden shelter in the Adirondacks and then sat on it for a while and didn't do anything. And I got to a point where I was starting to get a little dissatisfied with my job at Vermont Teddy Bear because I wasn't that passionate about teddy bears, being a 26-year-old male, and decided that this was time to try this. I was, young enough, didn't have any obligations or any things that I needed to really fund with my current income, and that, there's nothing like starting an outdoor gear shop to destroy your income earning capacity. And so I took that on, and I talked to Jerry Jordan at the Wilderness Exchange, and he gave me all sorts of advice, helped us with some closeouts to get started, and really got us on the right track. And then we just ran from it.
That's
great. With it,
That's great. And how many years have you been in business now? That's so.
This will be 23. We're starting our 24th year as of next week.
Good for you. That's great.
Yeah, and I love it. Just still love it.
That's great. Well, you must if you're doing the big expansion. Yeah.
I mean, it's changed a lot. We went from renting an 800 square foot space to owning a 50,000 square foot building only blocks away in Burlington, and that's given us a lot of opportunity to grow in all the channels of the business, online, Amazon, and in store.
Right. And what percentage of your mix is first run goods versus excess goods?
It's about 50-50.
Okay.
And I would say in the 50-50, in the 50 excess side, it's that also includes our consignment department.
Oh,
so
okay.
we it's about 50% off price and 50% full price.
Gotcha. And you do all the usual brands and all the categories, right? Climbing and backpacking and apparel.
Yep, we cover everything but Hook and Bullet and Patagonia.
Oh, interesting. Gotcha.
Yeah, we'd love to do Patagonia, but there's a Patagonia shop in town as well as a Patagonia dealer.
Yeah.
And so that's not really much of an option. In fact, I'm about to go down to the shop and buy a bag today. It's the one brand that I don't have access to. And so I'll support the local retailer when I do that.
Yeah, there you go. That's cool. And so what's it been like growing that business? I mean, it's over 23 years. You've seen a lot of change and you're growing now. I mean, we were talking earlier a little bit about the construction. That's got to be a whole nother skill set. Challenges.
It's been great. I mean, it's got its challenges, and initially, every time we've moved, there's been a massive cash flow crunch. We've never done a great job of pre-funding our expansions, and we've been fortunate to have great long-term relationships with our vendors who have really helped make it possible.
That's good.
But we've seen a lot of change. I mean, we've gone from at one point we had lots of inappropriateness in our employee manual. I won't go into details because they're borderline offensive at this point. As like watching a comedian from the 80s, you just wince at what they say.
Nice.
I guess but at this point, we've had to clean up our HR policies. We've had to really focus on different workforce. I mean, in 23 years, we've gone from hiring Gen Xers to hiring millennials, and millennials are really great employees, but they have different requirements. And as they are the workforce, you don't get to choose how you treat your employees based on what you need. You have to look at what they need and try to deal with it. It's
a two-way street,
their level. Yeah. And without them, we couldn't do what we do. I would say through our entire 23 years, our employees are our number one asset, and they are number one making the business work. Their enthusiasm, their engagement is there, and part of that is we hire the right people, but part of it is we create a fun environment and an environment where people are given enough autonomy to do what they want to do and enough support to be able to feel comfortable taking chances and knowing that that's okay if it doesn't work.
Yeah, cool. That's great. Yeah. And has the assortment changed over the years? You've always been about 50-50.
It's probably we've probably gone a little more full price. Going back to 1995 when we opened, aside from accessories that we were buying from the local and then preeminent distributor Peregrine Outdoors, which is located right in our backyard practically. Right. We get deliveries from one of their salespeople by bicycle in the evening. Nice. And other than that, everything we sold was closeouts. And then we started noticing that people were coming in and checking on our inventory to see whether they could find like an MSR Whisper Light stove. Uh-huh. And if we didn't have a used Whisper Light stove, they'd go up to EMS and buy it there. And we thought, if we've got customers who would rather shop from us, and then we're sending them somewhere else, why don't we start carrying some of those brands? And Cascade Designs was one of the first brands that we bought full price. Mm-hmm. And it's just sort of took off. In our first store with 800 square feet, we did almost no soft goods at all.
Wow.
And it's just their time, they take up space, they take up inventory dollars. Yeah. And you've got to really cycle through them to get to make sure you're not stuck with old inventory. Yeah, that's challenging. Then our next expansion, we went from 800 to about 4,000 square feet, and we sort of broadened our clothing offering. We broadened our footwear offering, and we jumped into backcountry skiing and snowshoeing. Mm-hmm. And that was the next step and the next evolution in what we were doing. And our consignment department expanded. And we went to like 13 employees. It was still a tiny shop. Everybody knew everybody. I think all but one person was at my wedding. Oh, cool. And tons of stuff going on like that.
Family atmosphere. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, and we've kept that, but the reality is part of how that has evolved is now we have 130 employees, and there have been a couple steps in the in between all those steps, and with each of those pieces of growth, we've had to put in more policies. Sure, and the line from Dazed and Confused, I keep getting older and they all keep staying the same age. My staff has always been between 23 and 30 for the most part, with the exception of some of our long timers. And so as the gap between their age and my age has grown, so has the complete connection socially, but we all still get along. We all still go out and bike or ski or hike together and take a paddling adventure or whatever. And everybody gets along. We all go out and drink when we can.
That's great.
Socialize. So it's still a family environment, but it's a broader family, and there's definitely factions within the family, as you would have with something growing like that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So you were on our panel at Outdoor Retailer talking about some of the tactics to thrive in the age of Amazon. You're experiencing it, right in front of you, the changes in outdoor retail and changes in retail. What are your thoughts on the current state of outdoor retail specifically? There's a lot of moving parts.
It's hard to really say on the whole state. Our business is very strong. We're very happy with how things are going. Mm-hmm. We're unique being in Burlington, Vermont, which has a very strong local ethic around shopping. Uh-huh. And so we are the local store. In the last year, we've had a North Face store go out of business, and Eastern Mountain Sports closed their local shop. Mm-hmm. Although LL Bean is literally outside our back door, we could toss a snowball at them when we open the back door into our loading dock.
Wow.
But the market has supported us, so we're quite happy. And we've had, I think in 23 years, we've had 1 year that I would say was abysmal, and that was when there was no snow a couple winters ago. Mm-hmm. But in general, I think the industry is very innovative right now. There's great product out there. Mm-hmm. Prices are creeping up a little, but overall, I'd say pretty stable. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Where with the conglomeration and the consolidation of some of the manufacturers and the vendors that we're using, that creates, I think, a risk of homogeneity. And there's a couple brands that I've seen sort of merge with a Pinnacle and entry level brand, and I think that we've seen in those cases both of those brands suffer a little bit.
Yeah. So has your consumer base, though, is pretty much, they're still active. They're still, a wide range of ages. So that's probably been pretty stable over the years. That's good for you guys.
Yeah, our customer base is very stable to the point where we are now employing the children of some of our shoppers from 23 years ago.
Right, that's great.
Kids who grew up playing around in our racks while their parents shopped. And the Burlington outdoor community is extremely strong and social and active, and that's really helpful because we've got people who have been with us forever. They bring their new friends to town. One of the nice things about Burlington is we've got I think now 4 or 5 major colleges in town.
Oh, that helps. Yeah.
And so we've got a steady stream of new participants in sporting, and we also have new community members, and a lot of people just stay. So you get people coming from out of state, coming to school at University of Vermont or at St. Michael's College or at Champlain. And when they're done after 4 years, they decide they love Burlington so much they stay. So we keep them as a customer, and then we get the new round of freshmen.
Perfect. Yeah, that's good. And they continue to embrace the new activities and do the old activities. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I think what we've seen over the years is our offering of product has sort of paralleled my own interest and my partner's interests in outdoors. So we started carrying kayaks when we were getting into kayaking, and we started doing more climbing as we had more employees who were intense about climbing, and the same goes for skiing. And now we've got a full-on mountain bike shop that we were amazed at how well we've done with high-end full suspension bikes, but they, our Pivot and Yeti products are flying out the door.
That's great.
Yeah. And at the same time, we're also selling, more entry-level town bikes and bike path level mountain bikes and cruisers. And people are trying new sports. I think one of the neat things to see, and this might not be evident in markets like New York or Boston or Chicago, where they're more city oriented, and people are excited to try new stuff. People are looking for ways to be outside. A few years back at one of the OIA discussions at OR, there was a group, I forget the name of the company out in San Francisco, that did some work for OIA, and they came up with the term outsidesy. And at the time, I really found it to be just ridiculous. But I've used that term more often to describe friends of mine who like to be outside, but they're not really active and outdoorsy. But to them, being outside is taking a walk in the park or walking to work the long route or being on the bike path. And that's an important customer base because those folks are using gear. They're using outdoor clothing, and they're investing in the sports. And as they grow, in their activity levels, they're gonna graduate into more sporting goods, and they're also going to be using more of the clothing, and it's a lifestyle thing.
Right.
When Sierra Trading Post opened up a store in Burlington, a lot of my friends asked, "Are you concerned about this?" And my response was simply no. Sierra Trading Post offers a great product. They do a great job of getting people into the outdoors. Their ad campaign was brilliant. Everybody's an explorer.
Yeah.
And the reality is once people get into the sport, they're going to outgrow other stores, and they're going to end up at Outdoor Gear Exchange for their next level of involvement. And the more people that get outside, the more people that take part in the sports that we support, the better it is for us, the better it is for the community, the health of the community, and for the environment itself.
Yeah, good.
One of my
everybody.
favorite stories about conservation and the creation of parks was the Ahwahnee Hotel in Yosemite, which was built on the premise that if we could build a luxury resort in this beautiful valley, wealthy people would come to it and they would see its value and help preserve it. And that's exactly what happened.
Right.
So the more people we can get outside, the more people we can put the wilderness and the outdoors into their DNA, the more likelihood that we're going to be able to support that and continue to have a wilderness to play in.
Yeah, right.
So, the expression "a rising tide lifts all ships," I think is incredibly applicable in this environment where, we want more people being outside, and it doesn't matter to us where they shop. We're comfortable with our piece of the market, and we know we're going to help a lot of people get outside, but it builds on itself. It's like a nexus around the shopping area. All the car dealerships in town are in one area always. A lot of supermarkets and drugstores are around each other because it brings people into that area. Well, if we can get more people outside, it doesn't matter if they're all coming to us or not. The more people involved, there's more market for us, and we're going to continue to succeed.
And do you think that in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to continue to see that expansion with more folks and more activities, and some of the more, I'm going to say, less adventurous activities being embraced by outdoors? That's what I love about the outdoor biz, is we've now evolved into some of these, less adventurous. You don't have to be a rock climber to consider yourself an outdoor person, which is great.
Right.
Yeah.
I do think we're going to see that trend. Obviously it's hard to know 5 to 10 years from now.
Right.
We don't know what technology is going to be out there. If you've ever watched any episode of Black Mirror, it's scary. We don't know what's going to happen, but all that technology is potentially available.
Yeah.
We've already seen the move to electronics in the outdoors. How many outdoor retailer discussions have been had about making it possible for people to bring their devices into the outdoors. We're all doing that. The preponderance of solar chargers and backcountry batteries and ways for people to be outside and still power their stuff. It's important, and that's what's to some degree opening up the outdoors to so many more people. Is people who are tied to their electronics now can go out and do it.
Right.
But that being said, I do think we're going to see a continued growth in the marketplace. People are seeing that value as we become more and more tied to our electronics and to our day jobs and to our desks and to the quote rat race. I think people are looking for ways to get outside, and the therapeutic value of being outdoors is becoming more and more evident.
So important these days.
I will say that I am in a bubble here in Burlington, but even if you get to somewhere like New York where they've built the Skyline, or the High Line, I guess.
The High Line,
that's just incredible. It's go up there and there's lots of outdoor space for people to be in. This is for outsidesy people living in Manhattan who want to be outdoors, and it's a way to get there. If you go to New York right now, the number of people on city bikes, and thank God City Card decided to sponsor them, because that's a great name for them.
Yeah.
But there are great opportunities to be outside, and people are taking them. You go there, sometimes it's hard to find a bike to ride because people are using them. And
just so
I think
busy. You're right. Yeah.
That's the cool thing.
Yeah,
and I'm also seeing that happen with waterways. And I will admit, I think that there's a certain amount of, I don't know if confirmation bias is the right expression, but I guess deterministic screens where as I've become more and more involved in water sports and live closer to the lake here in Burlington, I see more people out on the water, and I might just be changing my perspective, and there might not be that much growth, but certainly paddle sports have grown. There was a big insurgence of sales for kayaking about 12 years ago, and then that sort of dropped off, and now canoeing is becoming quite popular, and stand-up paddle boards obviously were the hot item 6-7 years ago and continue to be a strong seller. People are just looking for great ways to get outside that aren't technical. And then there's also the group of people who are really into technical sports. And I'd say my concern around that growth in the next 5 to 10 years is the intensity of what's going on, what YouTube and GoPros have created in terms of the adrenaline-driven.
Sports. Showing I can do better than you can do, and I can do hairier than you can do, and
Well, and I think it also risks alienating people who don't and may never be able to perform at that level. I've sort of lost a lot of interest in some of the big ski films that get released every year, whether it's Warren Miller or Matchstick or any of the other real big names, because it's all so unattainable and it's hard to attach. There was a movie that came out, I cannot remember, but it was Unicorn Productions, and it was all women skiing, and it was one of the best ski films I've ever seen because it was real people. They weren't these insane cliff jumping images one after another. It was big, people skiing faces, really hard terrain. They were skiing really steep faces. They were skiing great stuff. They weren't any less athletes than you were seeing in these other films, but it was more accessible. And I think that's going to be the key thing as we continue to grow the industry, is to make sure that we don't exclude the accessibility as we increase the adrenaline nature of what we're doing. And the more adrenaline sports that are going out there, the more potential risk there is, and that kind of risk does alienate people too. But that's the people who are getting into the sport these days in their early 20s and their late teens are getting in at that level, and it's just a different mindset. And so for me, as a 52-year-old athlete, I guess I consider myself less of an athlete, more of a recreationalist. I like to get out there and do things. I like to push myself, but I don't have as high a desire to be at risk.
I think those are the two things that are pushing. I mean, I think the outdoor industry is talking about and embracing accessibility across the board. And as we get older and can't do all those things we used to do, we're looking for ways to get out there and exercise and bike and ski, but knowing that, I'm not going to ski or climb or boat like I did when I was 20. Not going to happen. Just, banged up body and old and don't have the initiative and the adrenaline. So I think both of those are helping to drive a lot of this product and the trends we're seeing that you're talking about.
And I think what's happening is we're broadening the industry.
Exactly.
We're not pigeonholing it.
Right.
Yep. And that's, like I said, that's good for everybody.
Yeah. So tell us about some nonprofit work that you guys do. You guys must work with some local nonprofits, I would guess.
Well, we've got a couple. We certainly work with as many as we can. We've started a program several years ago. Years and years ago, we began a program called the Nickel Bag Program, which isn't what you think. But it was a program where for every time one of our customers chose not to take a bag when they made a purchase would normally require a bag, we would donate a nickel to a nonprofit of the month.
Cool.
And so we would look for some. It was emulated and mimicked by others in the community. It's worked out really well. I think we've given tens of thousands of dollars out this way over the years and saved hundreds of thousands of bags from going in the landfill.
Right.
And the way it came about was at one of our retreats, we started talking about, hey, we're putting all these bags out there. We see them in the trees on the side of the road. We see them around. We'd like to put less trash into the waste stream. Yeah. How do we discourage people from taking a bag without lecturing them? And how do you look at someone who's just spent, $300 on a bunch of stuff and say, oh, we're going to charge you a nickel for that bag, or it's going to be 10 cents if you want to take a bag with that. Right. That to me is insulting.
Totally backwards. Exactly.
So we went the other way. We made it so that, if someone's about to take a bag, we'll say, well, if you choose not to take that bag, we'll donate a nickel to this school group that's trying to build a new playground, this trail system that's trying to build a new set of steps for accessibility to the privy or whatever. And what we found is not only did it allow us to reduce the number of bags we were using, our bags cost 5.5 cents. And so we were actually saving money by doing this.
Right.
And our staff felt good about sort of sending the message out there about our environmental efforts. And our customers were excited about it. And because we were making it completely optional. It actually gave us a bit of a platform to talk about the importance of not putting more waste in the waste stream.
So it's win-wins all the way around.
That worked out really well.
Yeah.
And then the next evolution in this, I would attribute to one of our key consignment managers who is no longer working with us. But he came up with this idea of a grant fund. And so for our consignment customers, we now give consignment customers, when they drop off their product, an option of donating 0 to 100% of their consignment payout to our charitable grant fund.
Oh, cool.
And so we do a series of grants twice a year. It's sort of modeled after the Conservation Alliance, where we collect money for 6 months and then we distribute it. We add some of our own. So we do, right now, I think we're doing 4 to 5 grants per cycle.
Wow,
so it's anywhere from $9,000 to $12,000 a year.
Nice.
We are donating in grants of $1,500 to $1,500 for asset acquisition, access acquisition, and other ways that we can improve our local environment. And we try to focus on Vermont charities, on nonprofits that are maintaining trails and building accessibility and whatnot. And that's so we work with a lot of our local nonprofits.
That's
we also we're trying to get involved with the new hut system, the Vermont Huts Association that's going on. We work with Catamount Trail. We work with the Long Trail, which is a Green Mountain Club. And any organization that's doing great stuff in the outdoors, we want to be involved with, and we're trying to figure out ways to do more and get even outside of that grant fund procedure. We're also members of the Conservation Alliance, so we are active in trying to get local organizations into their grant cycle, and we've been very successful with that, partially because there aren't a ton of East Coast grants in each of the Conservation Alliance grant cycles. And so any East Coast members do tend to want to make sure that we get support for our projects.
Yeah, sure.
East Coast projects, not OGs. But by getting involved in this ways, we are attempting to make sure that the local nonprofits are being supported in the way they need to be to do what they're doing, because it's really important. And then we're also, my business partner and I are both on a variety of local boards associated with these nonprofits. So he's on the Vermont Hut Association board. He's on the Vermont Mountain Bike Association board. I'm working with VOREC, which was one of the 8 states that has a state level commission. In our case, it's a collaborative to work on building involvement in the outdoors and making sure that the outdoor businesses in Vermont are supported, and that we continue to build that, because outdoor business is great for employees, it's great for employers, it's great for the health of the state, and it's great for citizen retention, because in Vermont has a bit of a problem with people leaving. And so, whatever we can do to make this access and activity available to more people, we're helping to ensure that continues. And then as an adjunct to that, one of the recommendations that VOREC, the Vermont Outdoor Recreation Economic Collaborative, made to the governor was the creation of a Vermont Outdoor Business Alliance or Association. And so I'm on that board as well.
Oh, wow, great.
And that's we're following suit from Luis Benitez in Colorado.
Sure,
and
California's about to go the same route.
And so I think we were one of the first states in the East Coast to do it, and we're super psyched. I'm psyched to be involved in it. It's a ton of time and it's a lot of thought, but it's completely worth it. And as you advance in your career, you start to move up from the ground level and start to look from a 20,000 and 30,000 or 50,000 foot view to try to support what you're doing. And this is a great way for me to do it, for us to represent Outdoor Gear Exchange in doing that. And at this point, we're one of the largest outdoor stores in the Northeast, and certainly the largest one in the Burlington and Vermont communities. And so we're a single door. We've got representation both in Amazon and on the internet on our own site. And so we're interested in continuing to keep ourselves in people's forefront, but it's also it's a great pulpit to do that.
Exactly.
And to be able to focus folks in the community and in the government on what we need to be doing.
Right. That's so
you know,
important.
Mike and I are both proud to be involved in these organizations.
Yeah, that's awesome. And do you have any suggestions or advice for folks either wanting to get into the outdoor biz or grow their career if they're already in the outdoor biz?
Well, I think for getting into the outdoor business, I would give similar advice to getting into any business is for people to find a business itself that you value their values, that you like the way the business runs, and just get a job there. It doesn't matter what it is. If you are engaged and involved in your business and you're working in an organization that has a good culture, you'll get recognized and you'll move up the ladder.
Right.
Because, you know, a certain portion of everybody working in outdoor industry businesses cycles through. You know, for a lot of people,
sure,
it's a stepping stone. You get out of college, you want to sort of plant yourself in town you're in for a couple of years, get a job in a gear shop, and then move on. We've got that as a big piece of our employment.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. We also have a big piece of our employment that's been with us for over 5 years. We now have an employee ownership program where we've got currently 12 employee owners in addition to my initial partners and I. And you know, continuing to create that engagement. And people want careers. They want to. They find a place they like. They want to stay there. And we've been fortunate. Yeah. You know, as we've grown, we've been able to create positions. We now have a whole department just managing fulfillment by Amazon, and that's a great avenue for people who want to focus more on the technical aspects of. We've also got a great ski tech department, and we try to promote our ski and our bike techs to learn more skills and develop their careers. And we encourage our employees when they're ready to leave, we encourage them to move on, and we give them recommendations as needed. We're not looking to be the end point in anybody's career. But we want to support our employees' growth and their education. And when it's time for them to follow their next passion within the industry, we want to support that.
That's mutually beneficial.
It's a great industry.
Great. Yeah,
it's a great, and it gives us room to move people up who are lower down in the organization who do want those careers as well. So it's a good, very positive cycle.
Good strategy.
And you know, we've got people all over the country working in the outdoor industry who cut their chops at Outdoor Gear Exchange, and we're fortunate that that's seen as valuable pedigree, but it's great. You know, we can go practically any outdoor city in the country and find former staff.
That's cool.
We just had an event the other night, Thursday night, with Conrad Anker. Petzl brought him to town. He did a little talk at one of the local theaters, and then we had an after party at a restaurant in town that a friend of mine owns and was excited to be part of.
Oh, great.
And at one point we looked around, and 80% of the people at this event afterwards, this after party, were current and former employees of the store. Awesome. Because everybody just stays in touch and hangs out.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, we see a lot of them back at holidays. They'll come back. They'll go move on to get a job somewhere else, maybe paying more or sitting down instead of standing on the sales floor. Yeah. And then they'll miss it. And they want to come back and work 10 hours a week or something.
That's cool.
And we're lucky. We're really lucky. We've got a great environment that people seem to enjoy working. Yeah. Now that's not an absolute. We also have discontent. And,
everybody does. Yeah. Nothing's perfect.
Especially this move has been quite stressful for everybody, and a lot of people don't like the chaos and the dust. And we've pushed really hard. We were closed for 3 days and took down 140 feet of wall and built another 180 feet of wall. And we did every department except the footwear department. In the course of, we got started in 3 days, and then we opened on the 4th day, and it was a total mess. It was a total disaster. And for some of us, like myself, the chaos doesn't bother me.
Well, you know, when you're and it's a lot like being in the backcountry. Every day in the backcountry is not a bluebird sunny day. We do have stormy days. We do have wet days, and you just got to power through it. So
and it's all for the good of the greater process. Yeah. And again, I'm lucky to have the people working at the shop that I do. We've got cool folks who are fully engaged in what we're doing.
That's awesome. So you're a busy guy. Do you have any daily routines you use to keep your sanity?
I guess the one that I would say is I try to get up a little early and by a little early, that just means earlier than my wife, and sit with a cup of coffee and sort of quietly either listen to the news or look out the window and see what's going on weather-wise, and just sort of contemplate. I guess it's the closest thing that I would come to meditation-wise.
That's great.
But I'm not much for routines. That's the problem. Like, I don't do anything regularly.
Well, that's sitting with a cup of coffee. That's great.
Yeah. And so just sitting down with that would be my routine.
And do you have any favorite books, or do you give books as gifts?
I have. I'd say my number one favorite book is Lucky Jim by Kingsley Amis, which I think is hysterical. And I really enjoy the writing. But in terms of outdoor books, I think, I really loved Touching the Void when I read that years ago.
Great book, yeah.
And that's probably the most significant book that I've read that I've enjoyed in the outdoors.
Yeah.
I'm certainly, I want to read the Alda Leopold Sand County Almanac. That sounds to me like something, and it's been on my shelf forever. I'm now reading on a Kindle, which is really nice when I travel. I don't have to decide what I'm going to bring with me.
Right.
And I try to alternate when I read between fiction and nonfiction.
There you go. Cool.
Just sort of try to put a little brain power going on, and then sometimes just release. So in terms of giving books, I'd say I've given Lucky Jim to more people than anything else.
Oh, we'll look that up. We'll link to that in the show notes. I was, I was at Eagle Creek, where they're presenting sponsor of the Banff Film Festival, and I got to go to Banff for a couple of years. And one of the years, we skied into a hut for a couple of days afterwards, and Joe Simpson was on the trip.
Wow.
And he told that story in the hut with the wind blowing outside by candlelight, and it was just chilling. It was just amazing. That's a great book.
You actually remind me of another literary piece that I really enjoyed, and it goes back to a similar experience where when I was very fortunate as a kid. My dad is an active skier, and even into his later years, when he was in his late 60s, I was yes, that's about right. Yeah, so in his 60s, I was graduating college, and he took me on a couple of CMH helicopter ski trips.
Oh, fun.
And on the first one we went on, there was a second one, I guess. There was an older gentleman, someone in his 70s, who, whenever we were waiting for the helicopter, would recite Robert Service poems.
Oh, wow.
And one of my favorites was The Spell of the Yukon.
Yeah, that's a great one.
And what a tremendous poem, or a ballad, I guess. I'm not sure what it would be called, but I really enjoy Robert Service's writing, and also Jack London's stuff. So
we'll link to those
again,
too.
Not gifts that I've given, but those are outdoor literature that I enjoy.
Great books.
And it goes back to that same concept of being in this wilderness and hearing it. And I guess to that same point, I try to make a point of reading fiction or semi-fiction that is connected to where I'm going. So I read Desert Solitaire in the high Uintas on a camping trip with a bunch of friends.
Yeah, great.
And so, I read before I recently was in Cuba, and on my way there, I was reading. I read Graham. I think it was Graham Greene, maybe. Yeah, Graham Greene's Our Man in Cuba, which was
cool.
It's a play. Yeah. And so I try to sort of situate myself in that way.
Yeah, that's important. Yeah. And do you have a favorite piece of outdoor gear under $100?
Yes, without a doubt. I am a huge fan of hammocks.
Oh, okay.
Love relaxing. Love reading in between two trees wherever. I don't go on a trip without a hammock.
Okay, good.
I'm a huge fan of the Sea to Summit hammocks. Are really wonderful for their packability and lightness. You can get a full hammock, including straps, in the size of about a 12-ounce can of soda or beer.
Oh, wow. Perfect.
And then, both Kamek and Grand Trunk make great hammocks that are a little bit, a little more supple material. They weigh a little bit more. They take up a little more space, but those are pretty much what I would take on a canoe camping or a car camping trip. And then for either backpacking or even traveling where I'm trying to keep my the size of my bag down, I will bring the Sea to Summit.
Yeah, we'll link to all those in the show notes. That's awesome. As we finish up, is there anything else you'd like to say to our listeners or ask of our listeners?
It's great that people are listening in on this. I think we've got a really cool industry, and I think that anyone who's had a chance to go to Outdoor Retailer can see that, because outdoor retailer more than anything is a gathering of the tribe, and it's a bunch of friends who are in the same industry and have the same passion, and we're selling fun.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
we're not in stressful fields. My wife is a physician, and her day to day is very different from my day to day.
I'll bet. Yeah.
And
I can only imagine.
I'm thankful we're in our industry. And I think that anyone who comes to outdoor retailer and can really get engaged and, isn't just going as an observer, but has sort of a guide to walk them through the show and introduce them to people and make sure they're at the fun events and the important events and the important discussions, it's palpable how incredible our industry is and how lucky we are. And so I would say that anybody who wants to get involved and is someone who jumps in with both feet and is passionate about it, we are just such a great place for those people. And and we're so lucky to have that.
That's very well said. Yes, we are.
So that's
embrace it. Yeah.
Yeah, I look forward to those students. How many people go to trade shows and love them?
Right.
And we're not talking like the trade shows of the Mad Men era in Las Vegas and craziness. We're talking about going into a trade show booth and talking business all day long, and going out and you hang out with the same people at night.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and
you're
right.
One of my best times recently at a trade show was just stumbling into a dinner between a couple friends who happen to be reps local to us, and they live in the same town as I do, but they were just hanging out having dinner, and I sat down and hung out with them for a few hours, and it was such a respite from the craziness of the trade show. But these are my colleagues and my friends. How often do you get to say that genuinely, that your colleagues are your friends?
Right. And we're very, very lucky.
Our industry is about that. So
and if people want to reach out to you, ask questions, follow up, how can they find you?
The simplest thing is to send me an email at duck, at gearx.com.
Cool.
And if they want to see a little bit more about Outdoor Gear Exchange, you can get online and go to gearx.com and flip the culture page of our website, and you can see more about who we are and not just focus on the shopping aspect of the page. Mm-hmm. We've had a website since 1997.
Wow,
and
so early.
We've got we do it all internally. We have a full staff doing it, and I'm pretty proud of what we're doing. So
cool. Well, we'll link to both of those.
Come and take a look.
Yeah, we'll link to that in the show notes. Well, thanks. It's been great talking to you, Mark.
Yeah, you too, Rick. Thanks for reaching out and making this possible.
Yeah, man. Good luck with the expansion and all the work you're doing. I'll see you in the OR.
Yeah, we'll see you in a few months.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Take care. Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Marc Sherman. You can catch up with Marc by email at duck@gearx.com. You'll find links to everything we discussed in the show notes at theoutdoorbizpodcast.com/episode 94. Be sure to hit your favorite podcast app and subscribe today. Thanks for listening. Today's podcast is brought to you by WordPress. I've used WordPress to build a number of websites, including Stillwater's Consulting and the Outdoor Biz Podcast. There are a number of themes and plugins available both free and for purchase, enabling you to easily create the custom look and feel you want. If you're starting an online business, publishing a blog, and looking to take your online presence to the next level, visit theoutdoorbizpodcast.com/WordPress and get going today. With simple installation tools and thousands of themes to choose from, you'll be up and running in no time. Go to theoutdoorbizpodcast.com/WordPress and get your site launched today. If you want more of the Outdoor Biz Podcast, you can subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcast. Be sure and go to theoutdoorbizpodcast.com where you'll find all the episodes, show notes, and much, much more. Thanks for listening, and until next time, be sure and make time to get outside.